My name is Lisa Perry, and at 25, I thought I finally had control of my life. That illusion shattered early one gray morning. It was 6:30 a.m. when my phone buzzed violently across the nightstand. Half asleep, I grabbed it and saw Mom flashing on the screen. Her voice came through tight and cold. Lisa, come to the house. Now, no good morning, no explanation, just a command. Before I could ask why, she hung up. The silence that followed made my heart pound. I threw on jeans and a sweater, barely brushing my hair. As I drove through the quiet streets of Richmond, every familiar landmark blurred past. The bakery where Eric and I had tasted wedding cakes, the ivy-covered church we almost booked. Each reminder tightened the knot in my stomach. For months, Eric and I had poured our hearts into planning our wedding. The venue was reserved, invitations mailed, and my gown waited at a friend's apartment. But something in Mom's voice told me that dream was about to crack. The family home came into view, its white siding stark against the dull sky. Memories flooded in, summer bike rides, winter decorations. But this morning the house felt hostile. Even the wind chime by the porch clanged like a warning. Before I could knock, the door opened. Mom stood there with her arms folded, lips pressed into a thin line. "Come in," she said, offering no hug. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and lemon polish, normally comforting, now suffocating. Dad sat rigid in his armchair, eyes fixed on the carpet. My younger sister, Shannon, lounged on the couch, a sly half smile curling at the edges of her mouth. "What's going on?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. Mom gestured toward a chair, but I stayed standing. "We need to discuss this wedding," she said. My heart skipped. "What about it?" Her eyes narrowed. "Your father and I have decided we will not be paying for this event. In fact, we believe the entire thing is a mistake." For a moment, I just stared. "You can't be serious. The invitations are already sent." "Then cancel them," she snapped. "We will not fund this circus." The word circus hit like a slap. I felt the years of their control pressing down, choosing my college major, criticizing every apartment, dismissing every boyfriend. But this was more than meddling. This was sabotage. Across the room, Shannon tilted her head, eyes gleaming. "Better luck next time, sis," she said softly, taking a slow sip of coffee. Heat rushed through me, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. "Understood," I said evenly. Mom blinked, surprised by my calm. I gave her nothing more. I turned for the door. Behind me, Dad shifted as if he wanted to speak, but the words never came. The wind chime clanged again as I stepped outside, sounding almost triumphant. Rain began to fall, cool drops spattering across the driveway as I gripped the steering wheel of my car. They thought a canceled check could end my wedding, that a cold command could crush my resolve. But something inside me hardened. For years, I had allowed their rules to shape every decision. What to study, where to work, even how to dress. With one cruel sentence, they had unknowingly set me free. As the first streaks of dawn broke through the clouds, I whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning. They don't own my future anymore." I started the engine, the wipers sweeping away the rain, and drove into a day that no longer belonged to them. The windshield wipers kept a steady rhythm as I drove away from the house, but inside my head, the morning replayed in jagged fragments. Mom's cutting words, Shannon's smirk, Dad's uneasy silence. Each memory sharpened the question I couldn't shake. "Why now?" Eric answered on the second ring. "Lisa, you're up early." His voice, warm and steady, felt like a lifeline. I hesitated, then blurted, "They called me to the house. They're refusing to pay for the wedding." Mom called it a circus of pause. Then, calm but firm, "Come to the clinic after work. We'll talk it through. Don't let them ruin today." His steadiness steadied me. Still, as I hung up, a dull ache settled in my chest. Money wasn't the issue. Eric and I could manage. It was the why that burned. This wasn't just about finances. Something else lurked beneath their decision, something they weren't saying. I drove aimlessly for a while, past familiar neighborhoods and the old brick library where I'd spent countless afternoons as a teen. The memories pressed in like ghosts. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, Mom clapping at school plays, Shannon and I giggling in a blanket fort. Back then, I'd believed we were a perfect family. But perfection, I realized, had been their weapon. Rules disguised as love, control wrapped in tradition. By the time I reached my apartment, the early rain had stopped. Sunlight filtered through thinning clouds, but the heaviness in my chest remained. Inside, I kicked off my sneakers and opened my laptop. Emails from vendors lit up the screen. A florist invoice, a reminder from the photographer, a note from the Ivy House coordinator. All cheerful, all assuming the wedding was moving forward. For a second, I hovered over the reply button, tempted to cancel everything myself, just to beat my parents to it. Instead, I typed a single message to Eric. We're still on. No matter what. His reply came instantly. Always. That one word gave me enough strength to breathe. Later that afternoon, Kayla dropped by with coffee. She took one look at me and set the cups down. What happened? You look like someone stole your puppy. I told her everything. The early call, the living room showdown, Mom's ultimatum. Kayla's eyebrows shot up. They can't just pull the plug because they feel like it. And circus, that's brutal. I know. I rubbed my temples. It's not even about the money. It feels calculated. Kayla leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You think they're hiding something? I hesitated. My mom's been asking strange questions about the guest list. About the trust fund my grandfather left me, Kayla's head tilted. Trust fund? Yeah, I said slowly. Grandpa set aside a small inheritance for me. Nothing huge, at least that's what they told me. I can access it when I get married, but it's managed by my parents until then. Kayla's lips parted in a silent, oh. Lisa, what if it isn't small? The thought landed like a stone in my stomach. I'd never seen the paperwork myself. Mom always brushed it off, claiming it was just a formality. Kayla squeezed my hand. Maybe it's time you saw the numbers. That evening, after Eric finished at the clinic, we met at a quiet cafe downtown. The warm scent of espresso filled the air as I recounted the morning for the second time. He listened without interrupting, his fingers tracing slow circles across my palm. When I mentioned the trust fund, his eyes sharpened. Have you ever read the actual documents? No. Mom said Grandpa wanted them to handle everything until the wedding. Eric leaned forward. Then we need to get those documents. Tomorrow, his certainty gave me a jolt of courage. For the first time all day, a plan began to form. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every suspicious moment from the past year. Mom insisting on handling vendor deposits, Dad changing the subject whenever Grandpa's estate came up, Shannon making offhand comments about lucky breaks. What if the trust fund was larger than they admitted? What if marrying Eric meant I'd finally gain full control and they'd lose access? The possibilities churned in my mind until the first pale streaks of dawn crept across the ceiling. The next morning, Eric and I drove to the county records office. The clerk, a cheerful woman with bright red glasses, retrieved a thin folder stamped Perry Family Trust. My heart hammered as I flipped through the pages. The numbers leapt off the paper. Not small at all. $250,000. And the terms were clear. Upon my marriage, the funds would transfer directly to me, no parental oversight. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom hadn't been protecting me, she'd been protecting herself. Eric read over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. This explains everything, he said quietly. They're trying to keep you from activating the trust. A swirl of emotions, anger, betrayal, heartbreak, rushed through me all at once. The wedding wasn't their real concern. It was the money. My grandfather's final gift had become their secret income. I closed the folder with trembling hands. They've been using it, I whispered. All these years, they've been using my inheritance. Eric's grip on my shoulder steadied me. Then we make sure they can't touch another cent. His words settled over me like armor. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the child they could manipulate. I was the woman my grandfather believed in, the one who now held the truth. As we stepped out into the bright morning, the city felt different. The air smelled sharper, cleaner, as if the truth itself had swept through. I didn't know how my parents would react when they discovered I'd uncovered their secret, but I knew one thing for certain. The fight for my future had just begun, and this time I held the power.